I realized this week how very personal this is to me. I was talking to my mom. She's 83 years old. She lives alone. She has a chronic respiratory illness. And so I said, Mom, how are you doing? And she told me that she has been canceling her various appointments and activities for, she said, the next few months. Anything she doesn't need to do. She even said, I had a dental cleaning scheduled. I said, I don't need that right now because she's at high risk, obviously. And so she did go get her haircut, though. She said she needed a haircut, and she went and she called first, made sure that no one had the flu in her hair salon, and she got her haircut. My mom always looks beautiful, and I guess even if she's home alone for 3 months, she's going to look great, and I appreciate that about my mom. I love you, Mom, if you're watching. And I just want to say that when my mom, so she said, Marlin, I realized that if I get this virus, that's it for me. And gosh, hearing your mom say those words and realizing what this means to me and my own family potentially. So I just want to thank everybody for doing what you're doing to create some distance. People are making really hard decisions, sometimes really painful, even economically difficult decisions. I'm also, this is personal to me too, because as many of you know, my wife and I lost a child years ago, our eldest daughter, Sienna, to a virus. That the doctor said, if we got it as adults, we'd have a little cough, maybe a sniffle, but in her case, for various reasons, very rare situation, but it was fatal. And this isn't fatal for children, thank God, but we know that that's how it is. Some people, most people, it won't affect that much, but those who are vulnerable, it affects greatly. So really thank you for doing what you're doing, and I realize that it's not easy. Our 9th grade class is supposed to be in Boston right now on a pilgrimage that they've been waiting all as they've grown through our Sunday school to get to that Boston pilgrimage. They've been raising money to do it all year, and 2 days before they were ready to go, we had to call it off, and they were heartbroken. And I think of all those athletes that have been working, trying all their lives to get to the Final Four in basketball, or some of those who have been working to get to the Olympics and have qualified for the Olympics, and they may not be able to do this. But it's also, a couple came in here the other day, they're going to get married soon, and now there's a question about whether people can fly and be here and be here for their wedding, and of course, as Mariella mentioned earlier, our beloved member, 2-time president of our church, Roger Ames, who was on my search committee that brought me here, and he's passed yesterday. And I mean, if we did a memorial service tomorrow, this place would be packed to the gills if it were normal times. But most of his friends are in their 80s as well, and we realized, and the family said, we don't want to bring people together. In a time like this, we'll do something later. But these are the hard decisions people are making, and I just want to let you know that for me, everyone who's doing this, you are my hero, and it's heroic. I mean, when you think about heroes, a hero is someone who, in a time of crisis, goes beyond their own self-interest and often goes beyond ideology and other differences in order to work for the common good, work for something larger than themselves. And it's true, we see this in Israelis and Palestinians harboring each other through the conflict. We saw this in South Africa when after apartheid, folks who had been brutalizing each other or brutalized by one another, oppressed, came together and said, we need to figure out a way to create a country where all of us and our children and the future generations can live. And they transcended these things. It's heroic. And what many people are doing right now is truly heroic. There are lots of scriptures we could turn to, and I'm sure people are turning to the idea of loving our neighbor, the golden rule in so many traditions, also loving caring for the widows and the orphans and the foreigners. For those who are vulnerable, we care for them. That's what the world's religions tell us. But for this universal pandemic, I want to look at a universal scripture, even more universal than the rest perhaps, and that is evolution. People often mistake evolution or simplify it to this idea of the survival of the fittest. But really, what evolution stands for is survival of those who cooperate. If you think about it, Early on in evolution, there were only single-cell organisms, and then there was some crisis. Maybe something in the atmosphere, the temperature changed, or the oxygen levels changed, and many died out, but those who learned to cooperate with others survived. So then it went from single-cell to multi-cell organisms, and then another crisis, and then they went from multi-cell organisms to more complicated, and it went from crisis to more complicated forms of and complex forms of cooperation, collaboration, and that's what had created evolution to the point where we are now. And civilization has its own version of this happening, where we went from family groups to clans, from clans to tribes, from tribes to states, from states to nations, and now we truly need a global community in order to save ourselves and our world from environmental destruction, from viruses, from nuclear destruction, and other things. So as this goes on and on, we're each going to be given a chance to choose every day whether we're going to turn towards each other, even if what turn towards each other means is that we're going to make space for each other. And the truth is that in these pandemics, historically, what's happened is people have come together and been heroic early, but as it continues and fear grows and suffering grows, people start to turn away from one another. And that's something we truly can't afford to do. I heard David Brooks, the New York Times columnist, talking this week about the Spanish flu of 1918. He said, I wondered why there weren't more stories, sort of culture-shaping stories that came out of that incredible time when over 600,000 people in America died from the flu. And he said, he read about it, and the reason is because most people were not very proud of how they acted in that time. And so after it was over, people just stopped talking about it and forgot about it. My prayer, my wish, my hope for all of us is that we rise to this heroic moment and continue every day, every moment to turn towards each other, again, even if it means separating from one another for a period of time, and let us grow closer even in our distance. You are my heroes. You are an expression of a love that's beyond belief. All our religions, all of our cultures, all of our differences, those are things that this love that we're being called to is beyond all of those beliefs, all of those thoughts, all of those ideas. We need to transcend to something higher, something global, something universal. And I know that we can do it. We can do it together, and we will. I love you.